Welcome back. This is chapter 4, The Enemy, written by Pearl S. Buck. And today I'm going to explain page number 37 to you. So here we go. It is not true, Sadao said harshly. Americans are our enemies, but I have been trained not to let a man die if I can help it. Being agitated, being annoyed at the remarks made by the servants at home, he harshly said that it was not true. Americans were the enemies, but the point was that he had been trained, he had been instructed, he had been taught not to do injustice, to save a life if it was under his control. If he could do it, he should try and help save a life. The servants cannot understand that, she said anxiously, and his wife Hannah said, getting worried, being very, disappointed. She said that servants cannot understand the sentiment. No, he agreed, and Sadao agreed too, that servants are people working at the lower level cannot understand the sentiment. Neither seemed able to say more, and somehow the household dragged on. So here, from this point, they could not continue on the same topic, and then the household issues dragged on, pulled on. That is, after that, they did not talk over that issue. Rather, they discussed on household issues. The servants grew more watchful. Now the servants were more cautious. Their courtesy was as careful as ever. Their respect or the honoring of the master and mistress remained as usual, but their eyes were cold upon the pair to whom they were hired, but there was no sympathy, there was no respect in their eyes for their master and mistress now. It is clear what our master ought to do, the old gardener said one morning, and one morning the old gardener, the oldest of the lot, said one morning that the master knows his duties well. He knew what were his obligations, what were his duties. He had worked with flowers all his life and had been a specialist too in moss. For Sadao's father, he had made one of the finest moss gardens in Japan. And here, the author gives a description of this servant and said here that he dedicated all his life to the flowers. He worked all his life with the flowers and had been specialized, or say he had specialization in moss. He had developed special skills in the treatment of moss, and for that reason he made one of the finest garden of moss there in Japan for Sadao's father. Sweeping the bright green carpet constantly so that not a leaf or a pine needle marred the velvet of its surface, and he was so committed, so dedicated to his work that he allowed not even a leaf on that soft surface, not even a needle, pine needle on the surface, on the velvet surface, on the soft surface of the moss. What he believed that even these damaged the surface. My old master's son knows very well what he ought to do, he now said, pinching a bud from a bush as he spoke. Now the old gardener plucked a flower from the bush and pinched it and squeezed it, letting out the anger within him, and said at the same moment, at the same time, that his old master's son knew very well what were his obligations, what were his duties. When the man was so near death, why did he not let him bleed? When the man was so close to his death, and when he was dying a natural death, why the master went there to save his life? The young master is so proud of his skill to save life that he saves any life, the cook said contemptuously. Now, the cook, in a voice of complaint, said scornfully that his master was not careful. He didn't pay any heed to whether he was saving the life of a friend or an enemy. Since he was so proud, so boastful of his talent, because he was blessed with such a talent that he could give life to a dying man, and he was proud of it, and he was not careful whether he saved a life of a friend or an enemy. She split a fowl's neck skillfully and held the fluttering bird and let its blood flow into the roots of a wisteria vine. Now Yumi skillfully broke the neck of a fowl, that is a hen, and held the fluttering, the quivering bird near the root of wisteria vine so that the blood could seep into the roots of this vine. Blood is the best of fertilizers, and the old gardener would not let her waste a drop of it, since the gardener knew that the blood was the best of fertilizers for a plant, so he would not allow Yumi to waste even a drop of it. It is the children of whom we must think, Yumi said sadly. Now, getting sad, Yumi said that we all must be very careful of our children. We must think of our children. What will be their fate if their father is condemned as a traitor? And she expressed her concern, her fear, as what would happen in case Sadao was condemned. He was found to be a traitor. What would be the condition of these kids? They did not try to hide what they said from the ears of Hannah as she stood arranging the day's flower in the veranda nearby. And here the servants did not try to hide their thoughts as they were exchanging their thoughts, as they were talking to one another. They did not try to hide their thoughts, their feelings, though they knew that the mistress was nearby arranging flowers in the veranda, and that she could hear them, what they were talking about. And she knew they spoke on purpose that she might hear, and Hannah knew it that they spoke things on purpose so that their message could reach the master and the mistress. That they were right, she knew too, in most of her being. Even Hannah knew that they were right, they were not wrong. But there was another part of her which she herself could not understand, but there was another part, another, say, soul, another half of Hannah, upon which there was no control of her, upon which she could not exercise her control. And even she could not understand it. It was not sentimental liking of the prisoner. She had come to think of him as a prisoner, and it was not sentimental liking of the prisoner, and that the other half of Hannah, even that half of Hannah, that mind of Hannah, felt that the patient should survive, that the patient should live. It was not sentimental. She was not getting any sentimental or sentimentally, emotionally, she was liking the prisoner. She had come to think of him as a prisoner. For her, the patient, the enemy, was just a prisoner. So this is all for now. Thank you.